But now I'm going to bring on our first guest for today. Max Kaiser is an American investor, broadcaster, and filmmaker. He hosts the Kaiser Report, a financial program, and co-hosts with Stacey Herbert the Orange Pill podcast. He is also the founder of Bitcoin Capital and has been a Bitcoin advocate and educator since 2011 when the cryptocurrency was selling for just $1, which I'm pretty sure that makes him a fucking genius and a very, very rich man. So congratulations to him for being an early adopter of Bitcoin. I wish I was. Boy, oh boy, I wouldn't have to do this show anymore. Anyway, hi, Max. Welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Yeah. Most of that introductory spiel is out of date and,
is it?
And incorrect. Well, yeah, definitely. You know, things change rapidly, Jimmy, when you're an international influencer like me.
Yes, you are.
Countries change and presidents change. We're in El Salvador now. Max and Stacey are advising President Bukele on Bitcoin policy, and El Salvador is the story of the decade. Jimmy, you got to come down here. We got a podcasting studio set up just for you and Steph.
You know what? That sounds actually tempting. I think I'm going to come down there. But before we get to El Salvador story, I just refer to you, Max, as an international man of leisure. But I wanted you to ask you I want to ask you about this. Now, this story is about a month old, but I wanted to get your take on it because you're the guy who knows all about this. This is from Forbes. It says Argentina unveiled a mandatory registry for Bitcoin and crypto platforms. And with the anarcho-capitalist and libertarian leader Javier Millet taking power in Argentina in December of 2023, many felt that his plans to rebuild the national economy and dollarize it would help Bitcoin, BTC, and cryptocurrencies adoption in the country. But after a few months of his government, more regulation is coming. In late March, the Comisión Nacional de Valores in Argentina announced a new mandatory registry of virtual asset service providers for those operating with crypto assets inside the country. This new requirement will affect businesses dedicated to providing several services, such as buying, selling, sending, receiving, lending, or trading crypto. Every provider should complete the registration, and the regulation is not just for locally based companies, but also for those operating in the market, but based elsewhere. And according to this global crypto adoption index, the top 20, Argentina is the 15th largest cryptocurrency market in the world. And when this happened, Max, you tweeted this out. You said Javier Millet makes his first major mistake. He never took the time to understand Bitcoin, and now he'll suffer the consequences. So tell me what this means for Argentina, why he did it, and why it was a mistake.
Right. So Javier Millet is an anarcho-capitalist, and his idea is to just let everything trade, and everything and anything can be money, and let the market decide. And in El Salvador, we're Bitcoin maximalists, and only Bitcoin is legal tender, and everything else is not considered to be, it's considered to be needing an unregistered security, and is discouraged because only Bitcoin is suitable for nation state level adoption. Everything else that's not Bitcoin is garbage, it's crap, it's shit, it's centralized, it's no good. It's all going to zero against Bitcoin. So anyways, with Javier Millet, he is taking this anarcho-capitalist approach where everything and anything can be traded, and which is a mistake because he's losing the appeal of making Bitcoin legal tender and eschewing all of the other crap out there, as we've done in El Salvador, and you see the benefits to El Salvador. And so I think that he's pushed his program back by several years. So eventually he will come to the same conclusion that President Bukele came to in El Salvador, but he's given himself an artificially big impediment or barrier to overcome now. He would be a lot better off if he just made legal tender and allowed all the benefits that come with Bitcoin. And that was my point of that tweet.
So help someone like me understand. So now I think I understood half of what you just said. So why is him having people who trade in crypto register, why is that bad?
Well, there's crypto and then there's Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is decentralized, absolutely decentralized. There's nobody controlling it. It separates money from state. It's autonomous. It runs by itself.
It's blockchain. That is what they say, right? So, and the government can't control it like it can control regular currency.
It has the blockchain technology is one of the technologies that are part of the Bitcoin protocol, but it's not defined as blockchain. It's defined more as the incentive models that surround the block creation every 10 minutes that make it unique. And whereas everything else doesn't share these unique attributes. It's like saying, let's say a gold is, I think, element number 79 on the periodic table, and it can be used as money. It's been used as money for thousands of years. Whereas if you changed any single molecule or element in gold, it would no longer be element number 79. It would no longer be used as money. It's perfect for money in the analog world. But with Bitcoin, the design, it was, when it came out in 2009, it enjoyed irreproducibility. It was perfectly cast for what it is, a perfect store of value and perfect money. It cannot be improved. It's just like when the wheel was discovered or created back, however many thousands of years ago. There's been no improvement on the wheel. The wheel is perfect for what it does. Bitcoin is perfect money. It does what it says it should do. And all these other shit coins and crypto that have come after Bitcoin, there have been thousands and tens of thousands and 100,000 copycats, and they're all going to zero against Bitcoin. They all go to zero against Bitcoin. So my point to Millet is that you need to just recognize what's going on here with Bitcoin is it'll do what you need your economy to do he hates the central banks. He hates fiat money. And so by adopting Bitcoin, he's taking steps in that direction. But by allowing crypto and all these other shitcoins to trade, these are just essentially fiat money surrogates. The supply is not capped. There's thousands of them. They're insecure. They get bust. They're broken into. The founders have what are called pre-mined coins, so they're cashing in as the prices go up. They're full of fraud. Ethereum is a fraudulent project. It's very fraudulent. XRP is a fraudulent project. Cardano is a fraudulent project. So all these things are fraud. And whereas Bitcoin has proven to be the best money ever in history, is perfect money. And we see what's happened in El Salvador. The economy is booming, and President Bukele is once in a 500-year leader. He's a genius leader. And add Bitcoin, and you end up with what's happening here. It's growing. Tourism's growing. The market is growing. People are very happy. I'll give you a good example, Jimmy. On the southern border, the number of migrants from El Salvador into the U.S. is shrinking. We're at the point now of reverse migration, where there's more Salvadorans in America escaping back to El Salvador than the other way around, because there's more opportunity in El Salvador. Canadians are fleeing to El Salvador. Canadians have given up on Canada, and they're fleeing to El Salvador to pursue economic freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Same thing for Australia. You can't swing a dead cat in this country without hitting a Canadian, Jimmy.
Really?
They're everywhere. I mean, I said they should have an El Salvador hockey team. Within 5 years, we could be in the Stanley Cup.
So help me understand the beauty of Bitcoin. You say that these other cryptos like Dogecoin and those other things that I've heard of.
Ethereum was one I thought was like the second best. Is it?
And but so the difference is that Bitcoin, so you can't make more Bitcoin, right? So there's a finite amount of Bitcoin in the world, meaning so that you can't fiat currency it, meaning you can't just start printing more Bitcoin if you want to. Am I getting that straight?
Get back into the word decentralized versus centralized. So with Bitcoin, it's decentralized, and it's impossible to impact the vector that Bitcoin is on. There is no CEO. There is no people at the core of the project. There's no Silicon Valley money behind it. It was just released in 2009, and it's on its own. Nobody can touch it. It's the computational power of Bitcoin is beyond the reach of any government or group of governments banded together. If every government in the world got together, all 150 countries, and they said, we're all going to try to attack Bitcoin by joining up our computer power, they would not be able to assault Bitcoin. The computer power is beyond their reach. It has reached escape velocity. It's indestructible. And nobody can impact the fact that every 10 minutes, a new block is hashed. Every 10 minutes. Doesn't matter what the price is. Doesn't matter if China takes all the miners offline for a few months and hash power drops by 40%. Every 10 minutes, their Bitcoin is emitted into the network, and it's indestructible. It doesn't change. It's the only regular thing in the universe. It's time itself. It's a fact. It's truth. And as more people realize this, they're taking their investments, they're taking their money, and they're storing it in uncensorable, unconfiscatable Bitcoin. So that's why the market cap is over $1 trillion, and it's heading for a market cap where gold is. Gold is at 16 or 17, 18 trillion. That's where Bitcoin is heading. So it's, this is because it competes with gold, but it's 10 times better, 100 times better than gold. So to get to your point there, the key difference between Bitcoin and everything else is that Bitcoin is absolutely decentralized, whereas everything else is relatively centralized and therefore less secure. So if you want to boil it down to its one word, it would be security. Only Bitcoin offers absolute security. Everything else does not. That's why in the nation state level, only Bitcoin is legal tender here in El Salvador, because it's only project, that is absolutely secure. And when you're talking about a nation state, you cannot, mess around with something that's insecure, like every single other project out there.
So when you say that, I have several questions, and I hope I can remember them. So when you say that every 10 minutes there's a new Bitcoin released into the Bitcoin universe, did I hear that right?
A new blockchain. Not the actual
every
coin.
10 minutes, a new block is what's called hashed.
What does that
every
mean?
10 minutes, 3.125 Bitcoins now is released into the network. It started off when I started in Bitcoin back in 2011. Every 10 minutes, 50 new Bitcoin were released into the network. And then every 4 years, that number is cut in half. It's called the halving. We just had a halving. 2 weeks ago, every 10 minutes, it was 6.25 Bitcoin was released into the network. Then that got cut in half. It's now 3.125. So it's actually interesting because that means the inflation rate of Bitcoin, the number of coins released relative to the size of the Bitcoin market, is now less inflation than gold. Gold inflates at around 3% a year. Is a new discovery of new gold per year, whereas now Bitcoin is under 2%, I believe, is the inflation rate for Bitcoin. So it's becoming the hardest money ever in the history of the world. It's harder than gold. And what I mean by hard and harder is scarcity. So Bitcoin is now scarcer than gold. The ability to create it is now scarcity value versus gold. So it's become even harder, and it gets harder over time, and it gets more secure over time. So more people are parking their capital in it, so the market cap increases, and it's a real attack on fiat money. I think this is what's really shaping the global economy right now, Jimmy, is that central banks are freaking out because they realize that their model of central bank is now being disintermediated by Bitcoin, and that the central banks, and particularly the U.S. central bank, the Fed, is nervous because not only are the BRICS and other nations now getting out of using the dollar completely, they're using their own currencies. So usage of the dollar is declining. But Bitcoin offers things that the dollar can't do. For example, it's uncensorable, whereas in the dollar, using a SWIFT system of global transactions. If you recall, the U.S. Put a sanction on Iran not too long ago, or the U.S. seized some Russian assets recently. With Bitcoin, that's impossible. You can't do it. It's just a free market, and it's a pure free market. And and this is another key point that I say, which I don't think anyone else in the space really pushes this point so much as I do. But Bitcoin demonetizes violence, and it demonetizes war because it is unconfiscatable. So there's no point in trying to rob you of your property if it's impossible for me to obtain your property. If you have a seed phrase to your wallet and it's protected by multi-signatures and it's impossible to get your Bitcoin. So therefore, the whole idea of using violence to obtain wealth or to obtain property is demonetized. It's diminished. And I think this is one of the most profound aspects of Bitcoin. And we see that in El Salvador. There is a real abhorrence by the president of violence. He put 70,000 gangsters in jail, terrorists. He put them in jail. And there's an outbreak of love and peace I think in part because of Bitcoin. It's really, the attitude here is fantastic. People are optimistic. People are loving life. They have opportunity. And that's very different than any other country in the world right now. Certainly in the US. In the US, people are kind of downtrodden and depressed for the most part because the dollar is collapsing, the politics is a mess, the economy is shrinking. The cost of a big, McDonald's meal is now out of reach of the average person in America due to inflation. I've been, tweeting, I've been DMing you now for a year about inflation and, sending you tidbits about how this inflation genie was let out of the bottle and it's only going to get worse. They're not going to go back to 2% inflation. Inflation will only increase, substantially from here on. And that wipes out the middle class completely. All wage earners are going to get completely wiped out due to inflation. And it'll wipe out a lot of homeowners with the mortgage problems and mortgage rates. The only people that will do well going forward are people with assets, like chateaus, like paintings, old masters paintings, like gold to some degree, but particularly Bitcoin. Bitcoin will be the best performing asset in the world. It's been compounding at a rate of appreciation since 2010 of 70% a year on average. 70% a year on average. Since 2009. So as Paul Tudor Jones, who's a very famous hedge fund guy in Connecticut, he calls it the fastest horse in the race. And that's exactly what it is. Everything's going to zero against Bitcoin. House prices, bonds, stocks, shit coins, they all go to zero against Bitcoin because nothing will compete with Bitcoin's ability to compound going forward due to its attributes as perfect money that will attract all this capital. The planet Earth has about $400 trillion in capital tied up in various real estate, corporations, cash, etc. That's the total addressable market of Bitcoin. We're at 1 trillion. There's a huge road ahead, a huge price appreciation ahead.
So, okay. I always, what I like about Bitcoin, and so I'm telling people that I'm putting my money in gold, a big chunk of my retirement, right, in gold, and I'm putting some in Bitcoin. I'm putting some in annuities, even though that's what I feel the least safe about. And I'm putting some in T-bills. But so it's not equally split, but it's close. Hey, come see us do a live show. We're going to be in Denver, Colorado, May 11th, Los Angeles, California, doing a live panel show with a celebrity panel and video, Ashland, Virginia, Athens, Georgia, Rutherford, New Jersey, with Max Blumenthal, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Ontario, California, Irvine, California, Chicago, Illinois, with another celebrity panel, live video show in Chicago, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.